Living up to the billing so far, Real Madrid had the almost perfect season winning the trophies, but there was one trophy they missed out on, and boy, did they take it very badly indeed. That was, of course, Vinicius Jr. not winning the Ballon d'Or. So upset were Real Madrid by this decision, they refused to go to the ceremony. The plane was booked, it was ready on the runway to go, and they learnt that it would be Rodri who would win. You can see how close it was in the voting, but in the end, it's the Manchester City man, and of course a man who played for Spain as they won the Euros, that usurped Vinicius Jr., Jude Bellingham and Dani Carvajal, the three Real Madrid players coming second, third and fourth, respectively. This was... Where should we go? Let's talk about Rodri then. Overall, shall we, Nedum? In the sense that we have learned, of course, over the last few months, how important he is to Manchester City. Not necessarily the flair player that you would associate with previous Ballon d'Or winners, but one of the best in the world.
Yeah, without question. I think as well as that, you saw last season, there were times when there were murmurings, every time he'd be injured or suspended for a game. For City, I don't think they won in that time, and the performances looked and felt very, very different. So when you have somebody come back in who has that impact, somebody who doesn't just defensively do well for them, but scores goals, create assists, can really dictate tempo. And one thing which they've really very much missed this season is sort of controlling the transition when teams have come up against City as well. For him to be missing was huge, and that's just domestically. But you look at what he did for Spain. As you see there, he won Player of the Tournament for the Euros, which Spain went on and won. And again, that's for like a holding midfielder. Think how big an impact you must have within a team to be getting those sorts of plaudits, to be seen in that light as being so important when essentially, we're all basically led by attacking play. It's the type of thing that we drool over. Oh, this is what we want to see. We want to see goals, we want to see skills and all this stuff. But still, for him to be as important as he has been for Man City and for Spain, unequivocally for me, like he was right up there as a contender for the Ballon d'Or. And obviously, as you can see, it's very close with Vinicius Jr. And I've got to say, from the Real Madrid standpoint, obviously you're disappointed, but the fact is, it's almost like discrediting anything that Rodri did. But the season that he had is as good as we've seen from pretty much anybody in that position. So I think to sort of poo-poo that, I think that very much misses the point.
It's really weird, because we're going to talk really positively about Manchester City for a moment, which is strange to do considering what's happened over the last couple of months. But let's not forget, Steve, this is a team who became the first side in the history of the Premier League to win it 4 times in a row. And it was, once again, that second half of the season where they just turned it on at exactly the right time. Despite all the efforts from Arsenal, it wasn't good enough.
I guess we use the word experience, and there is absolutely no question that this Manchester City side, in those 4 years, well, probably the last 2 in particular, they lent on that experience because they know and they knew exactly what it took or takes to win the Premier League. And so when we talk about the Arsenal, they don't have that experience. So when there's a bump in the road, they're not quite sure what to do. Whereas City get a bump in the road, and as quickly as they've hit it, they've forgotten about it. I mean, there's such small margins, but to have that mentality, and yes, they've got the ability again, and they've got a great manager, but they have a mentality that has been through it, done it, seen it, and they know what it takes to get over those little speed bumps when they do arise, because they arise for everybody.
And in that title race, the thing was not only City's experience, but Arsenal knew exactly who they were going to be up against, Jules, in that race.
Yeah, and I do think that psychologically, when you know you're being chased by City or you are chasing City in those moments, that they're not going to bottle it, really. And they are going to catch you if they're behind you. And if you are trying to catch them, that you're not going to make that gap. And they usually go on those incredible winning runs of like 11 games, 12, 13, 14, and they just don't drop points at all. And it seems that when the pressure is at the highest and in that money time, really, as we say, they're always there, and they've got the experience. You're right, they've got the talent. I think they have players who are hungry certainly they were hungry for those kind of moments, and at some point it's a massive difference.
Incredibly, then. We were sat here in the summer, City are in the discussion, obviously, to win the Premier League and the Champions League once again. Nobody could have predicted what we've seen over the last couple of months. I think, am I right in saying, would you say, Nedum, Leicester winning the Premier League is the only bigger surprise that we've had in this league than what has happened to Manchester City over the last few months?
Ooh, that's a good comparison. And I think in some ways you could argue it's probably quite fair because for City, obviously them being history makers in the summer, winning the English top flight for the fourth time, the first time it's ever been done, that is huge. And most of us probably didn't think they'd be able to do it for a fifth time. But this fall off has been so drastic. I think as you look at these last 12 games, for me, it's not necessarily even the fact that they've gone winless. It's how many games they've lost within that time. I think the number's 9 out of 12. And as you look at it, there are teams who are worse than Man City who won't go on that run if they played all the same sides again. And that's been the alarming thing from my sort of perspective there. So the drop-off has happened. And as you see it, you know, you could be talking about injuries, Rodri being missing and so on. But the start of the season, first game of the season was away at Chelsea without Rodri. And they won that game. I think the second game was without Rodri. They won that game. But now you look at it and so many other things are going on. So many players so bang out of form. You know, whether it's someone like a Haaland, whether it's someone like a Kyle Walker. But these are players who the club have been able to lean on for the previous years. And to put it into perspective, you know, if by some miracle Man City all of a sudden found form, there's a world where if they didn't drop a point between now and the end of the season, they still finish on fewer points than they did last season in winning the league title. I think for me, this craziness that we see now, in some ways, and this is me with the positive spin since I got the City logo on my head now, puts into perspective how good that they have been in previous years because they've been so close to perfect for such key times and now they drift away from it. And they're poor. And this moment, it's not even a poor Man City side. This is a poor side for the Premier League in the way that they're playing at this moment in time. How they've arrived there, I don't know. And I suppose in some ways, as you said, to go back to the original question, last time you felt this confused about something, we're seeing Leicester City winning every single week and lifting up a Premier League trophy coming the end of the season back, was it 9 years ago?
It really is. It's mind-blowing, really, Jules.
It's incredible. I mean, neither of us really saw it coming. I don't think Pep Guardiola saw it coming. I think you can lose one game, of course, and I think the first of that series is away in the League Cup, isn't it, at Spurs, where you can lose. It's a League Cup game in midweek. But we didn't think too much of it. Yeah, okay, Spurs were good. We know Spurs can be good on their day. They can beat anybody. Okay, no problem. It's just that after that, it was another one and then another one, and then there was 5 in a row, which you don't lose 5 in a row when you're Pep Guardiola. And I think for me, maybe, and Klopp had a similar experience in his last season at Dortmund, if you remember, almost 10 years ago, where they were bottom at Christmas. And he never managed to, for somebody like him who'd been so used of winning, which is exactly the same as Pep. Pep is not a normal manager who wins and loses and wins. And no, he only wins. So for him to be in this position now, he's lost because he just doesn't know. It's never happened to him before. He doesn't know what it's like to lose 2 or 3 in a row, let alone 9 in 12. I mean, this is as many as they lost in the 108 games previously to this run. This is how crazy this is. So